everyone, welcome to the Real Estate Tax Tips channel. My name is Cherry Chen, a chartered professional accountant located in Oakville, Ontario, Canada. And I'm on a mission to become the Google map for hardworking Canadians seeking financial freedom. Today, I have a very special guest here, one of my early business mentors, still my business mentor, Nick Carassa from Rockstar Real Estate. Hi, Nick.
Hey, Cherry. You said early. That was like that means I'm old.
No.
Is that what that means?
We're about the same age. About the similar age. Let's just put it that way. Earlier, 10 years ago when I first started, that's how...
It's cool to see what you've done.
Yeah,
very
thank
cool.
you. I appreciate that. Like all my marketing system, everything that I've learned today and implemented, if you watch this video and you appreciate this video, it's all originated from Rockstar's marketing model.
Yeah, well, if it works, we take credit, and if it doesn't work, it was Cherry's idea. That was the deal before, right? So.
Well, the reason why we have Nick here today is because you guys do a lot of real estate investing and help a lot of your clients as well. You guys operate a membership system that educate real estate investors locally to teach them how to invest, and it's grown so much because my first speaking engagement was on your stage and it was to 300 people. I just spoke on their stage again. We just spoke to over 1,000 members.
Yeah, it was a busy one. So we have a few events a year that are geared towards real estate investors to try to understand really what's really going on, you know, because we have like with taxes and everything else, there's headlines, and then there's kind of like there's what's going on the streets, there's headlines, and then there's just like the bigger picture stuff that people aren't talking about in the headlines or on the streets that is really impacting everything. And that's the stuff that we try to dive into to try to help people and give them an information advantage when making their decisions, right?
The Rockstar Economic Update is always a highlight of the member event.
Yeah.
So this is the reason why we have Nick here to talk a little bit about why did you guys are not economists by any means.
No.
I know you do your own research. How did you start doing this?
Yeah, it was 2008. 2008 when the financial crisis, or what they call the Great Financial Crisis, happened in the US. We were down there at a mastermind meeting and we saw, you know, when you look at the average, at least in our experience, when you look at the average American entrepreneur versus the Canadian entrepreneur, they're much more aggressive, gung-ho, they're willing to try stuff, they're moving on to different things. I don't know if it's because of population base or just different areas, they can start businesses in different areas because of there's more people there. But at that time, we saw just the fear of God in these people. And, you know, because there's like the economy was freezing up, they're like, this is a disaster. And we didn't understand the money system that was happening at that time. And we're just like, we don't want to be caught off guard again. Like, what is this? Why did this happen? What's going on? So that's when we started diving into, for our own selfish best interest, the money system and trying to understand what was going on. And then when you go down that rabbit hole, you start seeing things that you can't unsee, and you just start looking at things in a whole different light. And that's where I think sometimes a lot of conversations are had around the economy, real estate investing, asset prices in general, and they miss the point of kind of what's really happening right in front of our eyes because it's not spoken about.
Yeah, okay, so what did you find? Because
the
money system is something really complicated. And I mean, in my little brain, before I met you guys, it was just like, hey, I have a paycheck, I pay my taxes, and I have this much left to do. And then that's it. I use it to pay for my rent or mortgage.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, we can go very deep, but we won't. But I think what became very apparent to us is that one of the big problems we feel with the way the economy is structured is the fact that this inflation thing that they say is like their goal was to keep it 2%. Hey, it's just 2%, it's just 2%, but 2% compounded adds up very quickly, right? And what happens is we're constantly overspending. So we're constantly, when I say we, I'm talking about the government, right? So the government of Canada is constantly overspending, and to overspend, they have to get the money from somewhere. So they borrow money, and they borrow the money into existence. In essence, that's what people are talking about when they say they're printing money, right? Because the money creation, so the M2 supply, the M2 supply, which is the number of Canadian dollars. There's different ways to look at it. M2 is a pretty common one for the number of Canadian dollars kind of in existence, is continuing to increase. So when those dollars increase and there's more in the system, well, then what happens to the value of each one of the dollars that's already there? It goes down, right? And this is what when we started just understanding this basic principle, we're like, oh my God, there's nothing behind these dollars. They're just creating more, and it impacts all of our purchasing power. So when we look at real estate prices as an example, this applies to many different things, but when we look at real estate prices as an example, we use our parents' house. So our parents bought their house years ago now. What's that, 45 years ago or so? They bought it for, I think, what is it?
Still own it?
They still own it.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. It's probably worth, I think it's probably worth, I don't know, $1.5 million today. Maybe actually, it's probably actually more than that. But they bought it for about 150, maybe 170,000. We'll use round numbers, 150,000 they bought it for. When you look back at that time, and today it's worth, call it $1.5 million, okay? So let's say it went up 10 times. Now, when you look back over time, what's happened in that time? Like, it's on the same piece of land, it's the same house. There's been some minor updates, but they haven't really done like an overhaul or anything. So there's a lot of stuff that's older in that house, and there could be argued that it's actually worth less than it was before because some of the systems have to be updated. So if when they bought the house, you put how much money they bought to buy the house on the front lawn, you would put a stack of bills that was $150,000. Now to buy the same house, if you put the same amount of money on the front lawn, it's $1.5 million. Nothing in the house has changed. But what's changed is the value of each dollar has gone down. So prices are going up, but it's not to us about the prices, it's about the value of our dollars going to crap. And it's going to crap, and crap's my way of not swearing. See, that's good. So it's going to...
It's totally okay, it's not for kids, this video.
But it's going to crap faster and faster and faster. So we're in Canada, we're actually debasing our currency faster than even the US, which is why we're seeing higher inflationary pressures than they have in the US. And I forget the number, I can't recall off the top of my head, but we went back since 2008 and we've debased our currency even faster than the US. And probably I think it was about 30% faster. So don't quote me on the number, I'd have to double check it, but we can look that up. But that's what we're seeing. So we're just like, why is no one talking about this? Because it impacts everything, and people just look at the sticker price of things and complain about stuff. So anyways, that's a bit of a rant now, but that's kind of, if we sum up the way we look at things, that's why we look at things. We're like, well, we're all getting screwed. We're all getting screwed. And one of the root problems of things is really this currency. We're using a bad money system.
So, I mean, we're not the only one that is incurring deficit after deficit. The reason why we're doing the money printing, is because our government hasn't been really responsible. And I mean, I read articles as well online, and they're so complicated, and sometimes it's way over my head. There's a belief that in the system, we're probably going too deep right now, there's a belief that, hey, like, it's okay for as long as it's okay to borrow and print money. The government is allowed to do that, and it's a good thing for as long as the production, the GDP of the country is also growing on a faster pace. Yeah,
the GDP is really a sign for people that, like, it doesn't really include everyone. It's more just a view of what's happening at a certain level. I don't want to go too deep into it, but it's at a certain level, and it really kind of just appeals to people that are in almost asset owners and higher income bracket and that type of stuff, right? So, but what people don't realize is that as the debt gets to a certain level, the amount of money that you print, you're no longer getting the same growth in GDP, right? So once the debt gets, there used to be able to print money, when the debt's small, you could print money, and for every dollar you print, maybe you get $1.20 growth in GDP in the economy. And that's great, okay, so there could be an argument made saying, hey, that's actually, it helps because there's growth overall, so it makes sense. But when the debt loads get this high, no longer does that work. So you're printing $1 of new debt, but you're not getting the dollar of growth. So as you create more and more debt, you're falling further, even though if the GDP is growing, it doesn't matter because you're falling further and further behind because you have to create too much debt for that to happen. And then you start getting all these other impacts of it, which is what we're seeing today.
So I think it is a complicated topic, and by no means we are expert on this at all, but we're trying to, all in our own little world, to try to protect what we've worked so hard for. Right now, we've worked so hard, exchange even for our businesses, we're working in exchange for the dollar. And we know that the dollar is not going to retain the value. And so we started also following you guys, and we started buying properties to hopefully just essentially just to store the value.
Yeah, it's like a hedge against inflation. Almost.
Yeah, exactly. And now, obviously, for those of you who know, I am very pissed about this inclusion rate increase announced in the latest federal budget. So are you still thinking, even with the tax rate, we should still invest in hard assets?
So yeah, I want to come, and I'm going to answer that. I want to come back to that for a second, because this blows my mind, because we were talking about it the other day, I was talking about it with Tom.
Yeah.
So just think about this. We earn money, okay? And then we earn money, and we get taxed on it.
Yeah.
So then we got less money left,
Yeah.
okay? And then now, they're devaluing that money that we have left.
Yep.
So as a defense mechanism,
Yep.
we go and do something like buy real estate. We're evil real estate investors, right? Because we're scooping up all the housing supply, which is not the case, right? We're actually, providing, especially if you buy a single unit or you're developing units, whatever, you're creating more housing options. But I'm just kind of having fun with that. So we now, as a defensive mechanism, because of the way what they're doing, irresponsibly spending money, devaluing our purchasing power, we now have to go get something like real estate. If that real estate goes up in value, in price, in sticker price, because they've devalued the currency more, then we pay tax on their devaluation.
Yes, that's that argument I've seen as well. Yes.
But it doesn't make sense. Like
100%.
Like so they flush the money into the economy and then they tax it further to take the money back out to try to offset their deficit spending. It makes zero sense, right? And then the dollars that even without the real estate, the dollars that I have left. Let's say I go to a restaurant and I buy then I have 100, maybe I have $50 left. Then the $50 goes there. Then the restaurants get taxed on that $50, and they just keep taxing it over and over. And you just look around, you're like, what the hell's going on here? So I don't think you're wrong on the tax perspective. I think you're right. And I know some people will disagree with this. And my only argument back to people saying, like, I can understand where you come from, saying, hey, the capital gains tax, some people pay more tax, we should pay more tax, whatever. Okay, sure. Even if I agree with you there. If I felt that money was going to be responsibly spent and go somewhere useful and increase the standard of living for Canadians, for locally maybe, parts of it go locally, then maybe I could justify it. But for them to start taxing more, just to go fritter it away into bullshit, bull crap.
Yeah,
it's
fine.
Arrive can, it's just a gong show.
Yeah.
So anyways, so for that, so that's the tax rant. But yes, and that's why I think it's still important to own hard assets, and that's why I still like real estate, any hard asset, anything that will hold its purchasing power of value. That if I believe it will. I think it's not only do I like it, I think it's a mandatory part of life if you live in a financial system like we live in to protect your purchasing power. Because what happens is we look at my father. He used to make, he'd bring home good money. We came from, well, I've shared this on the podcast, so I can share this. Our father would bring home $1,000 a week. Okay, in his construction company. He owned his own company, but he would pay himself $1,000 a week. We grew up in Mississauga, middle class life at that time, 4-bedroom home. We could go on our parents had 2 cars. We could go on a vacation here and there. Nothing extravagant or anything, but we lived, standard middle class life. If my father had savings, he would take those savings and he could put them in the bank, and they could buy something at that time.
Yep.
And whatever the basket of goods they could buy at that time got diminished over time. So if my dad had $100,000 for his retirement, and that's what he saved, by the time he was to retire 40 or 50 years later, that $100,000 can buy a fraction of what it bought before. They screwed him.
Yep.
This is my father who put his time and energy into the economy. He created more value than it was worth, than he got, because he got money in exchange. And then he didn't need all the value he generated, because he only spent some of the money. He kept the rest, and then the extra value that he saved was just diminished through inflation, completely robbed. And it's not just my father, it's like everyone. That's what's happening to everyone. And that's why I think if he parked it in some hard assets, as they inflated the money supply away, the value that he put into the economy at the time is then protected against that. So that's why I think hard assets are still important. Like real estate. Real estate I like more personally because it's an income-producing hard asset. So it can be a hedge, and it can also bought wisely, like right? Like bought wisely, bought for cash flow. It produces income, and then you can it's self-liquidating and all that type of stuff. So that's why I like it.
What kind of hard assets other than real estate? Because there are some haters out there on my previous 2 videos that they said that buying homes so wrong. You should never invest in homes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's okay. Like we have different opinions.
you know, 100%.
Yeah.
It's all about the numbers to me, right? Whatever makes sense. And I just think it's anything that's. Sorry, was that the end of the question?
Yeah, like what other hard assets you would invest in?
Yeah, we've done. I'm an old school investor, right? So we've done gold. Gold served its purpose. It hasn't skyrocketed. It hasn't dropped. It's, if you look at it over a long horizon, it's kind of kept up its purchasing power with the debasement of the currency. Obviously, we've talked about Bitcoin a lot lately. We like Bitcoin, and I know some people will be like, Bitcoin's insane. What are you doing with Bitcoin? This is ridiculous. This is nothing. But we like the fact that it's decentralized. That's very important to us. So governments can't control it, or it'd be very, 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 very unlikely for that to ever be able to happen. And we like the fact that they can only create so much of it. So as dollars keep getting created and put into creation, if people are investing in an asset like Bitcoin because there's only 21 million Bitcoin, then Bitcoin can't be inflated away. The dollars can be inflated, so the value of a Bitcoin or real estate or gold, those things might increase because we can't create as much supply of that to keep up with the dollars. And so any hard assets like that are things we like, right? And any hard asset, so I'm still a believer in real estate. Like I mentioned, real estate's a hard asset that spits off income. I wish gold and Bitcoin spit off more income and spit off income and those types of options. I haven't found those ones yet. But you see people do it with everything. People do it with fine art. People will do it with Rolexes, and there's all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah, awesome, cool. So I want to wrap this up here, and I want to ask you one final question. So I know that we're buying. The market has gone up substantially over the last few years in the real estate market, and for the last 10 years, and it's still going to go up and is waiting to go up. I feel like once the interest rate is
you're guaranteeing that? You're guaranteeing? That's a prediction.
Oh, well, it's a prediction. So, okay, what do you see? Like, I know you help clients purchase investment properties, and in today's market and the operating environment in Ontario, where do you see this going? Is it still worth it to buy it in like Ontario? And like, how do you, if you want to navigate through all these challenges, potential challenges, they can always go to your membership. But do you still see it worthwhile?
So we went back to I think it was 1969, and we mapped out the average price in the Toronto Real Estate Board against the money supply in Canada. And obviously the money supply is a bigger number, but we have these charts on our website, so you can get them if you go to rockstarinnercircle.com. You can find these charts somewhere, or email our office, whatever. But you can find them, and the way those two lines map up is it's almost shocking. Like, it's almost unbelievable because the trends, they match up almost exactly. So I think the question isn't necessarily about that. Some people just look at real estate prices. They're like, well, they're unaffordable, unattainable. They have to come smashing down. And they're I can understand that argument. It makes sense. But I think to further that a little bit deeper, I think the question I ask myself is, do I think they're going to stop printing? Are we going to stop deficit spending? No. From a government standpoint, are we going to stop increasing the money supply to fund that deficit spending? If I don't believe that we're going to stop increasing the money supply and stop inflation, then I still think that real estate has legs over the long term. Like, people, in the next 6 months, I don't know, maybe prices go down. The Toronto condo market looks pretty weak right now. There's a lot of people, a lot more supply coming on the market, and and everyone's like, oh, where's all the supply shortage? People are saying there's like pent up demand. How come they're not buying all these condos? And markets take a while to kind of figure things out. But I think for the right asset, so we're very interested in single family homes, because if you look at the number of single family homes being built as a percentage of our housing stock, it's continuing to drop. So single family homes interest us a lot more than some other housing unit types. And then that other question about like what's going to happen, what's the bigger picture that's impacting the housing market, and is that bigger picture going to change? And that's the one thing I feel is often left out of the conversation, whether it's in newspaper articles or sometimes in podcasts and things. That's not spoken about. And I think when you add that into the equation, or when I add that back into my equation, that's why I still feel good about real estate as well. The right property in the right area with the right numbers, not just buying any piece of property, but because I don't think they're going to change. Like, I think our money supply is so corrupted and so screwed up that this type of thing has to happen, because if it doesn't, everything falls apart. We can't have deflation come in, which is the money supply shrinking. Because if the money supply shrinks, it gets harder to pay off debts, and the government's getting more and more fiscal trouble. So this is where the problems come in. So because of the way things are structured, either everything gets revalued against something else, or the inflation continues to happen. And until for myself in my own life and for my family's life that I feel that that's going to change, then I'm still, I don't want dollars. I want something else other than dollars to hold my purchasing power, my savings in.
That's a very, very different perspective than all the haters out there that commented, because they always talk about it's people's greed that go into it, but people don't understand, the general public don't get to understand a lot of the a lot of the appreciation in real estate is really coming from the inflation and the printing of money.
It's the devalue of the dollar. It's not the price that's gone up.
Yeah.
But the investor is the enemy, not the government. No one's talking about the government because they're just looking at the sticker. Look, and you're right. First of all, the fact you read YouTube comments is incredible. Like we put stuff out. I read zero comments ever. I'm not even on social media. I'm like, I don't know. People put this stuff out. I'm like, I don't want to. I got other stuff I got to focus on. But good for you that you can do that. This isn't about greed, right? And I know how it sounds like it's about greed. Where they're like, well, you want the price to go up and stuff. And yeah, I get it. I'm not going to complain if the price goes down as a real estate investor. But I have to protect myself and my family's future. And if I take savings and I put them in the bank and I allow the government policy to inflate those savings away, I am degrading my family's future. And I don't need to do that. So if I understand and I believe that this is the way they're playing the game, then I'm allowed to play this game guilt-free as well, because I'm not doing it out of point of greed. This is you have to play. This is playing defense against what forces you're up against. That's all it is. And I understand where people are coming from. And if you take this a step further, and I apologize for going long, but to all those people that come from that greed place. This is the example I would use. If we had a good, sound money, so people were able to save their money, and it didn't get devalued, and then they could buy things, okay? So think about the inequality, because people talk about inequality, asset owners and not, and there is big inequality there. So now you have someone that, maybe it's a new immigrant trying to build a life in Canada, and they're busting their ass. They're working 2-3 jobs, they're not sleeping, they're busting their ass. Maybe they're renting a small apartment downtown, they're like, they want out of there, and they wanted to buy their own house, and they're just working their ass off, and they're saving, and they're putting everything away, and they're trying to save up money for a down payment, and that whatever they're trying to buy is, I'm just picking a number, $500,000, and they need, whatever, $50,000 to buy it. And then, but it's a slog, man. It's taking them years to save this $50,000. Well, as that $50,000 is being saved, that $500,000 asset is moving to $550,000, to $6,000, to $7,000, and it's moving because of this inflation, because they're devaluing that person's savings. So this person can't get further ahead in the economy, in our world, in our society. They can't get further ahead because their savings are being devalued. So if we didn't inflate the prices away, they could then get out of that situation and become the asset owner that they want to become. And not that you have to become an asset owner, but I'm just using an example of people that want to. And I'm like, this money problem, it solves other problems in our society that people don't talk about. So people can talk and be haters and and be like, oh, people are just greedy and this and that. But it's not. Like, if we fix that problem, then I think we fix other problems in our society, and we give people of all from all sorts of places, people that have a lot of means and people that have very little means, we give them more opportunity. I think that's the way that we give people more opportunity and create a better environment for everyone. And maybe that sounds like too far out there, but I truly believe it. Like, we have to fix the money. The money supply and the way we're running our financial system is a problem for everyone.
I think it's everyone can relate to it, because I see also a lot of people complaining like we can't afford whatever, like in the grocery price, cannot afford the gas price.
Sure.
That's gone up so much thanks to the carbon tax as well. And like there's so much that we're paying today that doesn't make sense anymore. But well, we are what we can. We can't do all the we can't solve all the problems in the world. Not Bill Gates, although I do look up to him to be able to solve some of the bigger problems. But we can only do what we can do is to protect what we have and then see what we can control. So thank you. So for anyone who wants to contact you or get to know more about Rockstar, where can they find you?
Yeah, just do a search for, I guess, Rockstar Inner Circle. So it's rockstarinnercircle.com. We're on YouTube, Rockstar Inner Circle there. The podcast is the Your Life, Your Terms show, which is we cover economic stuff, real estate, Bitcoin, health and fitness, all sorts of stuff actually. Because our whole belief, my brother and I, and the company is that we do all this stuff that we do on a regular basis to for all, and I don't mean us too. I mean everyone to live life on our terms. We call that your rockstar life. So it's your life on your terms. Whether it's partying in Vegas or reading a book at the cottage, whatever that is. So that's where the Your Life, Your Terms show comes from.
Yeah,
but that's the whole goal for all, I feel for all of us. We should be living life on our terms, being able to have choice in our lives and things like that. So that's kind of what we're all after.
That's cool. Thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Cherry.
Awesome.